Season 1 of Miss Marvel has come to a close, so it's time to stop and rank all 6 episodes from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all 6 episodes of Miss Marvel. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. As we go into this, I feel like this is another one of these Marvel shows that would have benefited from more episodes. There's a lot of interesting ideas, a lot of charm, a new perspective on the world of the MCU, but I think there's a few too many ideas squished into only 6 episodes, and that hurt the season as a whole. So which episodes were hurt the most? I'll let you know my thoughts in just a second, and let's get started. In last place, episode 5, Time and Again, and I feel here they just lost the plot, lost the story, and lost the tone. The first 2 episodes established this highly stylized coming-of-age story about this girl in Jersey City that loves superheroes, that gains superhero powers, and she's trying to balance her life, her family, and these new powers that she doesn't know how to use. And then, whoop, jump forward, now we are in 1942, and it's a serious adult drama about a real-life event that happened, except through the lens of the MCU, and it's about shared trauma for a group of people, and it is so far detached from where this show started. And at the end of it, we tie her into it, and there's these time travel elements, and we realize these stories she's been hearing her whole life, she was the person in the story all along. And it's trying to tug at the heartstrings a little bit, but because it feels so shoehorned into this season, it didn't really tug at my heartstrings all that much. It just felt like something that didn't belong in this season of television. And then this kind of continues onward where this whole plot line about the clandestines, their scheme is stopped. They are unsuccessful at returning to their home and everything they're trying to do. And that happens at the end of this episode, which isn't the season finale, in which case it was just kind of like a very odd way to structure your season. So for me, it felt like at this point in time, it showed the cracks in what they were trying to do here, and that they tried to put too many things into one season of television. Number 5, episode 4, Seeing Red. And right along with episode 5, I felt like this was them just losing the plot and trying to do too much with a single season of television. And everything here about, let's dive into the history of her family, the history of the powers, how does all of this work, how does it tie into the history of her people, all of that is actually interesting, good stuff, if you can give it enough time, and if that's the story that you're telling. All of this, the stuff that's introduced in episode 3, and then explored in 4 and 5, where we actually literally travel the globe, felt like it should have been season 2. That's what they should have done to dig in deep in season 2 and give a whole season to that. Give it 6 episodes and let season 1 be about this girl in Jersey City learning how to balance her powers with family obligations, friends, and the community response to her. Let her become a hero there. And instead of letting her become a hero, do superhero things, actually flesh out this stuff with damage control, suddenly the show turns into this globe-trotting adventure about discovering her family backstory and about all these different groups and the Red Daggers and the clandestines. And it just felt like it was the wrong time to deliver this much information before we've even established her as this hero in Jersey City, before we've even put her in the costume. Right as they started to let her be the superhero that's getting a reputation in her community, they shoot her off to the other side of the world, only for her to return for the finale. And I just felt like that was them losing the plot. What didn't expand upon what was set up, it did something totally different, which is what you do in season 2. So I wish all of this stuff had been saved for season 2 and fleshed out the stuff established in episodes 1, 2, and kind of 3. Fleshed that out. Her as the local hero. And instead, we just put so much in there that it just felt like tonally it shifted. We're introducing stuff we can't explore, and it was just too jam-packed, and it lost momentum. I was moving in one direction, and you took me in a different one briefly, and then we go back in episode 6 to what you originally established. And I wish they hadn't done that. Number 4, episode 3, Destined. And I feel like this is an episode that kind of could have gone either way for me of where it would fall in this ranking, but because where they took the ideas set up in this episode and we went off on our globetrotting adventure in episodes 4 and 5, it actually hurt this episode for me because it set up stuff that I don't really think served the season very well. In and of itself, it's kind of a bit of the direction I was hoping the season would go, which would be you have this girl that gains superpowers, and she's trying to figure out, how do I continue to be a part of this family? And we're going to a wedding. How do I do all of this while all of a sudden I'm being pulled into this world of superhero business? And so there's some things there that could have been really cool. But also it's a pretty exposition heavy episode where they're just kind of like dumping a lot of information on you that, once again, if I liked where all that went, if I felt it served the grander sense of the season, it probably would have sat better with me. But as is, I look at this episode as kind of the point in the season where it was like it started to turn in the wrong direction and go down a rabbit trail that pulled the overall quality down for me. Despite there are some things in there that I think were exactly what I was hoping that the show would be in general. In third place, episode 2, Crushed. A nice continuation of where episode 1 left off, with her gaining powers, saving someone, and all of a sudden, this girl that has been obsessed with Captain Marvel realizes she is her own superhero, and she's trying to figure out what to do with this information. So you get a bunch of the typical shenanigans that happen in these teenage origin stories as the kid is trying to figure out what to do with their powers and experimenting a little bit with it. But what I really enjoyed about it is this kind of showing the different responses to the introduction of a superhero in a community, where how did different people feel about this information, whether government agents, different members of her friends, her community, her family, and you look at it from all these different perspectives, and then all of it kind of culminates in this finale where someone is in danger, and so she goes to save the day, and everyone's watching, so you have multiple different responses to her trying to be the hero, and in her little mission to save this person, it goes bad. It's not entirely her fault that it goes bad, but it goes bad, and she fails in what she's trying to do, and the person isn't horribly hurt, but there doesn't, not great optics the way that she drops the person. And so there's introduction of a hero that fails at what they're trying to do and creates this kind of conflict in the community of like, is this person helping? Is this person hurting us? Like, what exactly is kind of going on here? And so that's more of what I was hoping the whole season was going to be like. I saw that and went, right, yeah, like, let's show her slowly figuring out how to be a hero. Let's show her failing along the way and discovering how her powers work, how to work with the community, and the growing change in the response to her. That's really where I wanted things to go. Where I got frustrated, we hit episode 3, it was like, no, let's do this whole other thing. Let's go globetrotting. Let's not explore her learning how to use her powers. We're not very interested in who she's becoming. Let's explore where she came from. That's to me the frustration of this season. There was a better version of this season that I was very interested in, about 6 episodes of her through a series of adventures learning to be a superhero, and instead we went off on a rabbit trail about her family origins and where the powers came from. And like the cliffhanger at the end of this episode was like, oh yeah, right, this is the right direction to take things. And then I don't think that's what exactly they did with the season. Our runner-up, episode 6, No Normal. Now this one is a little bit frustrating for me because I really want to put it at number 1 because there's so much about this episode that was so fun and everything that I wanted this show to be. But we got 2 big problems here. The first one is because the previous 3 episodes spent their time going on a rabbit trail about her backstory and history, instead of setting up the conflict between damage control, the community, and her, they did all this other stuff. So we have to like rush into forcing the conflict of this episode, where the problem comes in with this is that the person Miss Marvel is trying to help, Cameron, is an actual threat. He is dangerous. They did accidentally blow up a store. And as we go throughout the episode, it's very clear he's still sympathetic to the people that wanted to blow up the earth to go back home. And in the episode, she has to fight him to stop him from hurting people. And then she has to save people from him throwing a car at a crowd of people. And that just conflicts with this whole plotline they're trying to run of damage control's bad. They're evil. We need the city to rally behind Miss Marvel because damage control is bad. Like, they're not. They're jerks. They're making some bad choices here. But they're being forced by Miss Marvel, who's protecting a dangerous person, and a community that's been rallied by information that's not entirely truthful. Like, they're trying to protect innocent teenagers, they don't realize there's actually a very dangerous person. Like if you show up to help these teenagers, you might be crushed by a car because he's out of control. And the episode doesn't deal with any of this really important information. And it's like, I really want to put this on top and say, wow, that was great. But because you didn't properly set up your finale, you had to force some stuff to get to the good stuff. So once we get into the stuff I did like about it, this is kind of what I wanted the show to be, this very local story about this girl who's trying to figure out how to be a hero while balancing her friends and being honest with them and telling information who can she trust, while the community's trying to decide what they feel about her. Is she a hero? Is she a threat? Is she bringing unnecessary governmental authorities into their community that are just treating them as suspects and everything? Like, that's what I wanted the show to be about, and you get that again here. It's just a lot of fun. The shenanigans of them at the school, setting up traps and going full Home Alone. It returns to the style of the first couple of episodes with just creative ways of visualizing everything, like as they're writing their plan as it transitions in between it. A lot of all that fun stuff in there. So it had a bunch of the stuff that I wanted, but I don't think it was served by the previous few episodes to set it up for success, which was disappointing because it held this episode back because it had to do all the work itself, and that had consequences. But coming in first place is episode 1, Generation Y, and I felt that this episode just did a great job of introducing us to our lead character and the supporting family and friends who are with her. And what it does so well is get you actually invested in the drama of this family and this community in a way that makes it interesting, not like an exposition dump where there's drama and conflict between her and her parents, but it's understandable. Like you can see what they're doing and you believe that the parents care about her while they have their own holdups on what she should and shouldn't be allowed to do. For me, I was someone that wasn't a big fan of Turning Red, and I felt like this episode, and as the season went along, this season as a whole, did a better job of exploring certain parent-child dynamics than Turning Red was able to do, because this one drew me into a world and a culture that was new to me, where I was learning things through watching their day-to-day life, and I enjoyed that about it. And so you made me interested in, like, what will this person do when they gain powers? How will her family respond to her gaining powers? And that's what I enjoyed about this episode, that it set up everything so nicely. Other thing that's great about it is that it's just jam-packed with style. There's all this visual onomatopoeia in the way that people are like texting and it appears on the screen. And it just finds clever ways to visualize everything. And unfortunately, the season as a whole didn't really continue that style throughout the whole season. It kind of dropped it, especially as we start going off to Pakistan. It just kind of abandoned a lot of that. And the charm disappeared. And that's kind of, I keep going back to why some of those episodes frustrated me, because I actually was won over by this episode. I was like, oh, that's actually much better than I was expecting. This works a lot better. Oh, I see what you're doing here. There's like style, and you're visualizing what's going on in her head, and you're pulling me into her world. And then when we got to episode 5 in particular, it abandons all of that, and we're just exposition dumping. And that's the opposite of what was so good about this first episode, that showed us a world, showed us a culture by just getting us in the lives of interesting characters who get swept up in this big, gigantic adventure. So for me, this is a show that started very strong. It gave us a new perspective on the MCU, introduced this coming-of-age story that I was interested in going on, and it was a bit of an ups and downs of where it took things. I don't think it fully lived up to the potential set up in this first episode, but it started on a high note, so it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out some of my other MCU content right over there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.